You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. All right, welcome into today's episode. My guest today is Jeff Bourne, the director of athletics at James Madison University. Jeff, thanks for being with me.
Mike, glad to do it. It's good. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. You know, we're talking offline here for a couple minutes before jumping on the recording, and you and I have been around college athletics for quite some time, and you had the good fortune of spending quite a bit of your career in the state of Virginia, starting there at Virginia Tech and then moving down to Georgia Tech with Dave Braine before coming back to JMU. And we mentioned two guys offline here before our recording, Dave Braine and Dutch Baughman. And just curious, those guys are beloved, have had a huge impact on college athletics through the years. Just talk for a few minutes about their influence on you and your career and your life.
Oh, I mean, both of them, I really treasure the time I was able to spend with them and what I was able to learn and take away. Two great men. I was actually around Dutch first when he was the athletic director there at Virginia Tech. He and I had a lot in common. We were both grew up in a ranching background and farming area, so we could relate to each other on that front. And then got to spend a little bit of time with him through the years when he was active with the Division I Institute. And then, of course, Dave took over the reins at Virginia Tech early on in my career. I'd only been there about 2 years and had a chance to really Dave serve as a mentor, my main mentor, through about a 13-year period of time at Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, and our personalities clicked. We both loved to fly rod and spend a little time on the water. Both love of outdoors and love of sport and helping young people grow. And I learned a lot from both of them. I really think most of my leadership philosophy today carries broadly on the concepts that both of those men endorsed so heavily through their careers. So I really feel blessed to have had a chance to be with both of them and have the opportunity to learn.
That's awesome. So I was thinking the other day, Shane Beamer, Frank Beamer's son, worked with us at Tennessee for a while, and obviously he's gone on now to coach the Gamecocks and doing a great job. And it made me reflect back as we're talking about Dave for just a moment. When Coach Beamer, Shane's dad, Frank, came to Virginia Tech from Murray State, back in the day, I know he came in as Virginia Tech was had some scholarship restrictions, but in the first 6 or 7 years of his tenure there at Tech, they won somewhere in the neighborhood of 35-40% of the games, and then obviously went on a tear. And he's clearly is the Hall of Fame, one of the legends in this profession. But Dave stuck with Coach Beamer seemingly in a way that you can't really do today, or at least not very many people are doing today. Were you were there a little bit during those times, I believe, and so just a reflection of the growth of Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech and how Dave supported him.
Sure. I mean, those were interesting times. That was an interesting road. We didn't win our first bowl game until 1993, and it was in Louisiana at the Independence Bowl, and it had been a long dry spell for Virginia Tech, and the first years of Frank's career, win-loss wise, it was tough. It was a real challenge. One of the things I learned from Dave, though, in looking at coaches, is look at the individual, look at the person, know a lot about the individual. What are their morals? What are their values? How do they communicate? How do they recruit? And the other thing that I learned most from that early stage that's really resonated with me is the right people around you. And I can remember that Sunday morning conversation about like it was yesterday with Dave and when Frank was there. It was, it's about getting the right people around you. And Dave really did believe in Frank and as a coach and his ability as a leader. I think what he really stressed that made the biggest difference are the people around you helping you accomplish the things you need to accomplish, and do you have the right people on board? And That year was the year that Frank made some significant changes in his staff, and after that, the rest was history. I mean, it was an example of the right people at the right time. And the other thing I always admired about Frank, even after we started having significant success, Frank was all about thank you for the increase and the contract extension, but what are you doing for my staff? What are you doing to help compensate them? Because one of the things that I believe even today, and I felt it here at JMU, continuity and building consistency with staff over a period of time is crucial. And they understood the culture. Everybody agreed to what it was we wanted to accomplish, and that was a good time to be in athletics and learn a lot during that 6 year period of time.
Do you think this is probably a stupid question, Jeff, but I'm entitled to ask one because my name's on the podcast. The the idea of you know, I say a lot of times today we're training um, in a way for short term success when the reality is this is a long term business, right? And the days of sticking with coaches for 7 or 8 years under the circumstances are probably long and gone. But you're seeing changes now after 1 year in some cases, and some of this is driven by dollars. It's driven by social media. It's driven by pressures. A lot of different factors. What? How do you? Is it possible? I'm not saying we'll ever put the toothpaste back in the tube, but how do we gain some clarity around being willing to make tough decisions that sometimes have to fly in the face of this constant need for change that our society seeks so much in today's world?
I think first and foremost, we as administrators need to do our job really well on the front end. And when you hire a coach, it's going to be one of the most important decisions that you make for you and your program. And I think that has to be lockstep with the president because anymore, the pressure comes not only just from inside athletics, but it comes from all over the university if things aren't going well right up front. And what are those expectations? Um, Part of the other element is, are we willing to stay in this for the long run and give somebody an opportunity to truly succeed? Because if we've done a good job and we feel good about that candidate that we have in the head coaching role, then sometimes it takes time. They have to recruit, they have to have the right staff around them. One of the things today that I think made it different, somewhat different than it did back 30 years ago, are the dollars that are involved. There's so much at stake right now in these hires and so much money on the line that you want to make sure you get it right. The unfortunate side is if it's not right, then the cost to exit that relationship is very expensive. And I know with our staff, it's one of the things that we say, let's take our time up front. Let's make sure we make the right hire. Let's be patient. Let's give them a chance to succeed on a number of levels. And I've taken some heat for that over the years in some of our positions. But by and large, I do think that correlates to our industry across the board, whether it's Power 5, G5, or really any level of any division.
I would say your track record on the hiring has been good. You came to JMU in 1999 as athletic director. You now are entering your 23rd, 24th year, and you don't have the longevity that you have without doing some things right and hiring the right coaches and leading the right way along the way. And first of all, let me back up. For those who have not been to your campus, one of the most beautiful places on this earth, just a great place there in Virginia along the corridor. And we're going to talk about your move to the Sun Belt and FBS in just a minute, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that you guys have been winning for a long time at a high level for years at James Madison, and that track record's been there. I candidly, Jeff, I don't know exactly the athletic history before your arrival. I know more about it. I know more about it since your arrival, and you guys have competed and won at a national level, not just in your conference. Maybe talk to me a little bit about, we all have our first job, and now this is going to evolve a real reflection because this is 22 years ago now. But why was I assume geography was part of the reason for you to come to JMU, but just the decision to move there when you did, and probably more importantly, I know you've had chances to go other places over these years. Why this has been the place that you chose to plant your roots?
It's a great question. For me, when I was at Georgia Tech, I felt like I had one of the best jobs in America. I really did. I was working with my best friend as a director. Um, we loved Atlanta. Dave didn't play golf, so I got to play a lot of golf. um, our golf team got to go to Augusta every year and practice, so that was a great thing. You're just around a wonderful part of the country, and we loved it. I got to the point with a young family, though, where I knew eventually I was going to have to make a decision. And I wanted to go to an institution that, for me, had a great balance between the academic component of the institution and also a place that could grow and be really successful on the athletic front. And fortunately for me, this program was predominantly a female program for many years early on as Madison College. Leotis Morrison, who's the athletic director here, did a great job. She turned the reins over to Dean Ehlers, a person who I deeply respect and looked up to in this business as the athletic director, and he had a very successful program before I ever stepped in town, and with their basketball programs and football and everybody across the board. So I stepped into a program that already had a good basic structure to it. There was going to be a lot of work that had to be done from a fundraising standpoint, facility standpoint, and building the operational aspects of the program, but the foundation was there. And so it just seemed, frankly, I was surprised when I got the offer because it was one of the first jobs I really applied to outside of Georgia Tech. And when I got here and had a chance to look at it, I felt like it was a great spot to be. For us, it was really about building a culture. It was continuing the culture that was here and expanding on it. And I took a lot of the aspects of what I'd learned from Dutch and from Dave into building a staff. And that process is a lot easier said than done for everybody that's had to go through that. It's putting the right people around you that can help you be successful. And that, for me, was really sort of the foundation. And we've been really blessed to keep most of those folks. I mean, they could have gone a lot of other places, but they've decided to stay here and help build what we've put together at JMU.
So, for a number of years now, let's call it, I don't know, 8 to 10, there's been conversation about when would James Madison make the jump from FCS to FBS. And your track record shows that you have had incredible success at the FCS level with 2 national championships under your tenure and lots of wins with successful coaches. And you chose to wait patiently for the right time. I don't know if the move with Oklahoma and Texas and all that came after that was the final thing that spurred all this along. But you were obviously working your plan through at this time to decide when the right time was going to be and where the right place would be to land. Why was this the right time?
Well, for us, we were really prepared. This is something we started over. It's been 12 years ago now that it first started its inception. We knew eventually that we would end up moving to the FBS level, and we didn't want to end up trying to do everything that was required in a 2 or 3 year window. So we started building incrementally, and we selected key peer institutions that we felt like we weren't exactly alike, but were similar to, and we could be similar funding wise to a large degree, and we started building our program after them. And we knew that one of these days an opportunity would open up with the right geographic institutions and footprint in it that made sense. We did not see that before. And in the group of 5 schools and the footprint, they weren't really ideal for us. But when the move was made and the Sun Belt opened up divisional play, and those schools included Old Dominion, Appalachian, Marshall, Georgia Southern, all the schools that had been rivals of ours in the past, and schools that we knew our fans identified with and would want to be around those competitions. The footprint really worked well for us. And a great deal of faith in Keith Gill, and as a commissioner, I knew that he would do an excellent job. I mean, our roots go back, gee, 25, 30 years in this business together, and I really do respect him. So we had a great deal of confidence, and that's a league that was already very good. I mean, they had excellent programs, and outside of just the athletic programs, they were institutions, schools that looked like JMU. They were private schools, many of them fairly, large in size with regard to the student population, and we had a lot of similarities. And we really did believe that long term, our success would be predicated by being around institutions that were similar to us, very similar, offered the same cadre of sports, the same funding opportunity, and had the same fundamental goals that we did. And that for us ended up being one of the most important elements, and why the timing when this came along, we just felt like it was right.
So you talked about preparation, and that's viewed through a lot of different lens. Two that people tend to view it from initially is, what's your budget, and what kind of facility infrastructure do you have? And you've done over quarter of a billion dollars in construction in your tenure, including a beautiful new arena that just opened a few short years ago. If I read correctly, your budget entering the FBS was $53 million, which I think was at the top end of the Sun Belt as you entered the league from FCS. So you guys have done a lot of prep from budgeting standpoint, facility standpoint. But let's don't forego some of the other important elements that are part of this very significant move relative to other support structure around the move, because you're dealing with a larger number of student athletes in the case of football, and other things that come with that. Maybe just, I guess, maybe first of all, affirm my information about your facility plan and your budgets and how that all came to be, and then other things that you guys were looking at as you made the move, and in terms of your total support around the program.
Well, it all really starts with the university. No matter how good you are or how hard you work, if you don't have the support of your university and you don't have the financial resources from the school and from your donors, you're not going to be able to make things happen. And for us, we had both. We had a very vibrant, growing fundraising base and donor base that had supported us. They traveled well. They did all those things that everybody wants to look out and see a donor base do. We had a very supportive administration. Our president, going all the way back to President Linwood Rose, our now current president, John Alger, our board, our vice president, Charlie King, was one of our vice presidents at the time, who my office reported to, and Charlie did a wonderful job of helping support athletics and helping us grow. And we built an infrastructure that was more aligned to the FBS. One of the schools that we use as a barometer is Wake Forest. So we were more like Wake in terms of how we were funded and how our resources were put together for things like academic support, sports medicine, strength and nutrition, all the individual components that you'd expect. Now the mental health and illness element of it, all that was put together to sort of model what we felt a very strong FBS program is, and what we felt like when that opportunity came, we would stand a chance to be competitive immediately, rather than waiting and hoping down the road in 2 or 3 years that we could succeed. That was never our goal. Our goal was to be good from the beginning. So I give a great deal of credit to the plan. The plan worked. We pulled that together, and we worked our plan, and we stayed diligent to the task. And that plan's since been altered a little bit, but that's just that's our philosophy and how we like to go about things when we're in a period of potential change like this.
Well, I know I'm going to give you a chance to brag a little bit about the success of your entry into the league in just a minute through the evaluation of the Bubas Cup. But first, let me say this: you enter FBS football in the fall. You immediately vault into the top 25, playing the first transition school ever to play a full slate of FBS opponents. And then all of a sudden, you make national news a little bit, Jeff, on the ability to move from FCS and to FBS and be able to play and compete for a championship, play in a bowl. And I thought your thought process and commentary during that time was all spot on. If you don't mind to share with our audience some of what transpired there. Obviously, the thing in question is, there's a transition period between divisions, and you guys were faced with that in a very real way, but with a program that was already competitive enough to be participatory otherwise, and all the nuances that came with that. And just maybe give us an update on what you learned from that, and maybe where all that is at this stage.
Well, I certainly understand why there's a transition stage. When you look back over history and you look at institutions that have transitioned, I think it's a healthy piece of legislation. Most of those schools don't get to play an A-game schedule in year one. Most have not taken 10 years to build infrastructure and support. They make the decision, and then after the decision's made, they start adding those elements incrementally over time. And then you hope after 3, 4 years, then hopefully you'll be competitive. The difference for us was we had started that a long time ago, and we had been already building to the point to where when we got into the league we'd be competitive. The waiver really only affects one sport, and it's a major sport. It's football. It affects the ability to play in a bowl game or compete for a conference championship. So it's a tough thing to look at young men in your program who are extremely talented and have played very well and say, you don't get a chance to play this year. It's the rule. It is what it is. Um, the downside of that, though, is that they didn't get a chance to play. And I think the difference today from where it's been historically is that we all have the portal, we have NIL, and a lot of other things that if young men aren't able to achieve certain accomplishments in their career at an institution, they can leave. And that puts a school like JMU, who's, in my opinion, already at the level where we can compete and be very competitive from that angle in a very difficult spot. And that's not a opportunity that people have had to deal with previously. For us, it's about are you ready or are you not? And you can check the boxes. Have you met the guidelines that are required to be an FBS school in all of the categories that are established? And if the goal is yes, then to me, I would hope that we'd be able to compete, and it would count. If not, then it would make sense then that you'd wait an additional year. So I'm not critical. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of practicality and what I think is realistic. I think young men deserve to compete, and there are waivers that are out there. I mean, this is what I'm talking about is why waivers are put in place to evaluate if you're ready or not. So we've gone through that exercise, and I'm sure here in the next few months, NCAA will have had a chance to go through it and evaluate our plea, and we'll see how it goes this fall.
We're pulling for you on that front to be certain. Um, so let's shift gears to a very somber thing for just a moment. We have, as athletic directors, as leaders, we have different things that we have to deal with from time to time that are very difficult. And there are the times where your leadership mettle is really tested. And you had the unfortunate circumstance of the death of a student athlete and the death of a staff member that you had to walk through with your campus and your department. And but at the same time keep everything moving forward, right? And I know you did a thorough evaluation of your mental health programs during that time and came out with some really helpful information. I'm curious, no one wants to go through that. How do you lead with empathy and care and concern and grace? Or more specifically, how did you try to do that during those times?
Well, as a parent, you put yourself in the place of the family, the mom and the dad and everybody around it. Of course, the team and our coaches, and we are a very tight knit group here in the Valley. JMU's family is a tight family internally in athletics, and there's tremendous support for our programs across the board from other programs. Um, you do the best you can do. The university pulls together and helps you. The one thing that I can honestly reflect on and say that, I probably wasn't prepared well enough when it comes to the level of outside support that an athletic program should lean on when you go through an instance where you've lost a student athlete. Um, we all in athletics like to think that we're supportive and we can pull our colleagues through, but when you get to a situation like that, that's something that as student athletes, coaches, and staff, we're not prepared to do, and that you have to turn that over to individuals at the university and the medical level that know how and when to deal with each phase of that. And we have since made some changes in what we've done. I think we did a really good job. We, being our university, did an excellent job forming a blanket around our team and our coaches and those young women and help them through. But those were trained professionals. Those were individuals from our offices on campus that specialize in any form of mental or psychiatric help and need. They're counselors. It's their business and what they do day in and day out. And so being able to have that network available and be able to turn the scenario over to them was a great comfort for us. And unfortunately, it's now in the manual that if anything should ever happen again in the future, we'll engage those people very, very quickly and let people do their work. We felt like we did that. We just may not have acknowledged it early enough on. So the department needs to take initiative from that group of counselors on what to do and how to do things. And I think our campus and athletic program I think we did a very good job overall, but it is one of the hardest, most challenging times that you look back on in your life as an administrator when you go through that. Just absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, it's definitely something that there's no textbook written on, right? And you're walking your way through it, trying to feel the pieces along the way and be as empathetic and understanding as you can be. And I do think that, um, through the pandemic and other, mental health issues that we all in this country have dealt with over the last few years, and suicide being one of those. The fact that is beginning to be demystified and talked about in an open way, I think can only help us in the long run because it's a very real thing, particularly in athletics, Jeff, where there's been stigma around those kinds of things in the past. It's great to see scales falling off eyes and people being willing to talk about those hard things because it's real life, right? And
No
I know
question.
no one wants to have to go through what you and your JMU family had to go through theirs, and certainly the family that experienced that tragedy personally. But I know for those who listen to this, and there are folks all over the country who do, I'm sure that you have an open ear, a phone ready for any time that you can help to just unpack, right, and talk to somebody about what they may be dealing with.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you have to give yourself the grace of patience and of just working your way through it. And those of us that have been through it, I mean, I had talked to Bernard Muir at Stanford because they had an instance on their campus, and he was helpful. And I would encourage anybody that is either having gone through it or finds themselves in that position. One of the comforts is talk to your colleagues, and my phone is always open for anyone that would want to call or talk because we'd be happy to share and provide whatever insight we can and help.
So we talked about early on the success of the university as it was originally a women's university, and I'm going to give you the chance to talk about two very specific squads who've had a tremendous. You had a lot of women's teams that have had success, but two squads in particular I'm going to call out here for you to just use as highlights of the work that you guys are doing. In 2018, you won the NCAA Women's National Championship in lacrosse, and then in 2021 you captured the hearts and minds of so many people in the beginning of the summer with your College World Series appearance in the Softball World Series in 21. You were the first CAA team to do that. You were also the first non-Power 5 team to do that since 2014, and you were all the talk for days there. Maybe just share a little bit about the joy coming out of those two things and how that's symbolic of your women's athletic program there at JMU.
Sure. I mean, those were certainly bright spots, no doubt. I'll give the caveat at the beginning that we're what I call an equity based program. We really strive diligently to make sure that all of our sport programs have the funding that they need and the expectations are there. And one of the things that we use as an expectational bar in athletics is that we want to see sometime in a 4-year period each of our sports go win a championship and go to NCAA postseason play. And if they don't win a championship, then we want to see them get an at-large bid because we believe that that experience in the NCAAs is a really fundamental part of college sport, and it brings an experience and time for those young men or women that they'll remember the rest of their lives. It's just very special. So I'll start with that, and that's as you've seen in our program, sort of as the tide rises, all boats rise. And so for us, as we've had success across the board, it's really helped, I think, the success in some of these programs. Let's take lacrosse, for instance, already a very competitive program, excellent coaching staff, right in the middle of the hotbed for recruiting in the United States for lacrosse, an ideal sport for our institution. It really fits the mold for who we are and where we are. That year, everything came together. I mean, we just continued to get better through the years, and it's an example of a very talented squad, but a squad at the beginning of the year that people would have said, well, yeah, we think they can be pretty good, but we don't see them being a national champion. Well, somebody forgot to tell them that because they played great. And I mean, they had a wonderful season. And that same type of personality, culture, ability to endure and fight through challenge is something I still see in the team today. I think we're ranked this year 5th so far and have had some great wins through the season. I expect them to go on and play into the NCAAs again this year, and I think they got a chance to do really well. Softball, the Cinderella story team, after having been out there, boy, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, that was home, right? To go and show up in that environment and to be able to do what we did, we had some outstanding young women that grew up and nobody told them they couldn't be champions, that they couldn't compete, and they found a way every game to get better. And the synergy, we use synergy a lot as a word within our program, that synergy really took hold in that program, and they got better and better as the season went on. The year before, we've been good. I mean, we had Megan Good as a pitcher previously. She was a very talented young lady, but then you just watched that team grow over a period of years, and they're very good. Even with the tragic loss that we had last year, I see the team getting their feet under them, and I think here they've got a chance to play well this year, but certainly year after next, as some of our younger players really mature, I think we've got a chance to do really well. Odyssey Alexander was a phenomenal young woman. I wish we could have kept her another year, but she was an example of what can happen when a young person gets opportunity and it's at the right place. And she truly flourished for us.
All right, so we talked a little bit. We touched on a couple of different programs. This is your first full year in the Sun Belt. I believe the measurement of success in the Sun Belt is a Bubas Cup. How are you doing this year and your transition from CAA to the Sun Belt?
We're holding our own. We're doing well. It's been a good year. You know, for us last year, we got invited to play, and then our first year we stepped into the awards and won all 3 of the academic awards in the league, which I was really proud of our kids and our coaches for that. And then this year we've managed to win a volleyball championship in the league and a women's basketball championship. The football program we talked about before was very competitive. We want to be a really good contributing member of this league, and we appreciate the types of teams that we're playing against. I mean, it's tough across the board. It really is. Both our soccer programs made it to the finals of their champions respective championships, and we're just really proud with the way we're competing. And I think that's a testament to the university. I think it's a testament to preparation, and I want to thank the league. I mean, I'm sure there are other schools that they could have looked at and maybe selected from, but the fact that they believed in us, and I think the league, I'm just appreciative of that opportunity. I look at the directors in this league and administrators that are so committed and consummate professionals. I'm glad to work alongside them. I think the tone of our meetings and what we're able to accomplish is a reason that we see success on the field in so many sports. And I just really see us getting better. I really do think this is a league that, as good as we've been, can really be better. And I see tremendous future in it, and we're really glad to be a part of it.
Mm. All right, let's end on a couple of personal notes. You tell me, give everybody a little bit of an insight as to who Jeff Bourne is. I'll hit on a couple of things. You tell me if I'm in directionally correct or off base. First of all, your wife, Mary Lou, has worked on campus there through a number of these years in economic development. I'm sure that's been a pleasure to have her around campus regularly. If I remember correctly, is it two sons, Jeff?
Yes, two.
Two sons. I know that you are I'll call it a wine connoisseur of fine wines. like to make a little limoncello when you get a chance, and I know you like to fly fish. So are those the three or four good highlights? Did I miss anything?
Those are perfect. Mary Lou is the heartbeat of the family. I was just lucky enough to find her 40 some odd years ago as a spouse, and that's been a great thing. Love of the outdoors. We love North Carolina, where we spend a lot of time, but we're also big fans of Wyoming and Montana. So spend a fair amount of time skiing. Love the outdoors, and it's just something we're a close family, and we do a lot of things together. So that's good. I'd be remiss if I didn't remember my dog Driggs. Everybody's got to have a golden retriever, so they're able to vacuum their house once a day. But it's good.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. Well, hey, look, it's been a real gift to have you with me today. I appreciate you taking some time to converse with me, and I know the folks that listen to this will enjoy it as well.
Yeah, Mike, thanks so much. Appreciate you guys so much, and really enjoyed being on.
All right, folks, this has been From the Chair. I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. We're here every week on YouTube if you want to watch it on video, and all across your audio podcast platforms if you just want to listen. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.